Good morning, and welcome to Tiny Desk Worship for First Church and Parish in Dedham. This is January 3rd, 2021. We'll begin with ringing our bell. And our centering thought. I love people who make me laugh. I honestly think it's the thing I like most, to laugh. It cures a multitude of ills. It's probably the most important thing in a person. Audrey Hepburn. Relax into our prelude, Jolly Polly by Florence A. Goodrich, played by Derry Dolezal. It's so good to be together. I hope that you can join us for Zoom Social Hour. We also have several other ways to get together. We're starting a writing group that will begin next week. Even if you don't consider yourself a great writer, please do consider joining us. It'll be fun to get together and share our thoughts and ideas. If you don't like Zoom Social Hour and you'd like to make an appointment with me, it's easy to do that on our website. And there's always Zoom social meditation every morning from 9 to 9:30. So please consider joining us. We will now begin our morning worship with Dance by BUENITA Carter, played by Derry Dolezal. Our opening words this morning are a poem titled One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day. Accept the fluster of the lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names where it was you last meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones and vaster. Some realms I own, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love. I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it might look like, write it, like disaster. Please join with me in singing hymn number 145 in your gray hymnal, As Tranquil Streams. chalice. I'm going to light our chalice today for all the people who make us smile and laugh, for comedians, for children, for hopefully family members and friends who give us something to chuckle about. And I especially light our chalice today for Susan White, who's taught me the importance of bringing up laughter in our congregation from year to year. I also light our green sanctuary candle for all the ways we strive to be a more sustainable congregation. Please say with me the unison affirmation that is written in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to serve humanity in love is our covenant with each other and with God. I'm going to ring our bell and invite our children forward for our centering time before our intergenerational message. Bring this sound into our hearts and our minds and our spirits. Today, for our intergenerational message, I asked my nieces, Eloise and Nora, to tell us a few jokes, and I've included subtitles because I want to make sure you understand and hear the joke, and maybe you can learn some jokes. And if you send me jokes, I will add them to our service. And you can also send me stories.
Why do people tell actors to break a leg?
Because every play needs a cast.
What does a skeleton eat for breakfast?
Scream of wheat.
Where do they make average things?
The science factory.
What do you get if you cross a vampire with a snowman?
Frostbite.
For our meditation today, we're going to practice laugh yoga. And laugh yoga is simply just making the sounds of laughter until we come into a laughing time. So I'm going to try it, and you can try along with me. Ha, ha, ho, ho, 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 ha, 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 ho, 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 ha, 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 ho, 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 ha, 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 ha. Okay, you get this. You get the point. Try to do that for 4 or 5 minutes a day or longer if you can. Laughing is really good for you. Our first reading this morning is from The Hilarious World of Depression by John Moe. My family didn't avoid talking about problems by watching the Carol Burnett Show. We avoided talking about problems and watched the Carol Burnett Show. It was the best, funniest, most delightful hour of television available on our broadcast schedule. And it felt like a window into the greatest place in the world. In Carol's world, you didn't have to read between the lines to get what someone was really meant. If somebody was drunk, it was just for a sketch. The bad stuff was swiftly resolved, and all pretend anyway. This was before streaming or DVR or even videotapes, so if you wanted to watch Carol, you had to be there for Carol, and I was always there for Carol. Now, memory always paints a scene to match the mood you remember. It's unlikely the whole family, all 6 of us, sat on a single sofa together, piled our laps and armrests to laugh uproariously at Carol and company. But that's the warmth I felt in that hour, and that's how I remember it. We were all very different people, but we all loved comedy. I loved it because it was funny, and in order to exist more fully in that pocket of family warmth. I quickly glommed onto the funny one label. Everyone needs a Ringo. All members of the family enjoyed comedy. but I lived it. It wasn't about laughs for me. It was about structure. There's a premise, a setup, and a punchline. And the punchline, as the audience laughs, a little burst of happiness gets delivered to the brain, a bit of dopamine. I invite you to relax into our anthem, Gaiety, by BUENITA Carter, played by Derry Dolezal. Our second reading is an excerpt from It's Catching by David Sedaris from his book, When You Are Engulfed in Flames. My friend Patsy was telling me a story. So I'm at the movie theater, she said, and I've got my coat all neatly laid out on the back of my seat when this guy comes along. And here I stopped her because I've always wondered about this coat business. When I'm in a theater, I either fold mine in my lap or lay it over the armrest. But Patsy always spreads hers out, acting as if the seat back were cold and she couldn't possibly enjoy herself while it was suffering. "Why do you do that?" I asked. And she looked at me saying, "Germs, silly. Think of all the people who've laid their heads there. Doesn't it give you the creeps?" I admitted that it never had occurred to me. "Well, you'd never lie on a hotel bedspread, would you?" she asked. And again, why not? I might not put it in my mouth, but to lie back and make a few phone calls, I do it all the time. "But you wash the phone first, right?" No. "Well, that's just dangerous," she said in a similar vein. I was at the grocery store with my sister Lisa, and I noticed her pushing the cart with her forearms. "What's up?" I asked. "Oh," she said, "you don't ever want to touch the handle of a grocery store cart with your bare hands. These things are crawling with germs." Is it just Americans, or does everyone think like this? In Paris once, I went to my neighborhood supermarket and saw a man shopping with his cockatiel, which was the size of a teenage eagle, and stood perched on the handle of his cart. I told this to Lisa, and she said, "See? There's no telling what foot diseases that bird might have." She had a point, but it's not like everyone takes a cockatiel to the grocery store, a lifetime of shopping, and this was the first exotic bird I'd ever seen browsing the meat counter. Please join with me in singing hymn number 117 in your gray hymnal, "O Light of Life that Lives in Us." O Light of Life that lives in us. While writing this sermon, I drank Yogi Tangerine tea, on which the tag read, "Happiness is an accomplishment." It made me smile to read it because no better opening line could I have imagined on the small square of a tea bag. You may ask how we accomplish such a feat as happiness, and I think Susan White would tell us that laughter is the best medicine, and it probably is. According to Norman Cousins, who wrote The Anatomy of an Illness in the 1960s, and oodles of research since, laughter raises serotonin levels. If you know anything about brain chemistry, then you know serotonin is the main hormone that stabilizes mood and raises feelings of well-being and happiness, so laughter is the best medicine indeed. Dr. Madan Kataria, the founder of Laugh Yoga, recommends people laugh as a form of spiritual exercise. My favorite YouTube of his is on the day he tries to laugh when he is very sad and doesn't feel like laughing. I wish I could have shown you that as part of worship today, as he is so sad when he starts to laugh in his Laugh Yoga. You almost feel sorry for him. You're almost about 7 minutes into his slow ha ha ho ho ha ha ho ho practice before he is able to laugh spontaneously. Sometimes life feels that way, as though it is ridiculously impossible to laugh. 2020 provided us with more experience with this than most years. I'm hoping 2021 is full of laughter. In truth, I think it is essential to our health and well-being that we learn to laugh, no matter what catastrophes we face. Practicing Laugh Yoga and taking 10 to 20 minutes each day to make yourself laugh, no matter what is happening, is my first suggestion for this new year. Laughter Yoga International is having a virtual basic learning course in January if you're interested, and there are tons of YouTube videos to help you get started. Ha ha ho ho ha ha hoing. However, I have a couple of other suggestions to get you laughing if yoga is not your style. Just as John Moe, the author of our second reading from The Hilarious World of Depression, as well as the originator of the podcast by the same name, suggests, finding funny shows and movies that make you laugh can be a way of lightening your mood and lifting your spirits. However, I know from experience that not everyone thinks that the same thing is funny. For example, when I was in California and I would make jokes about the seasons, nobody ever laughed. So too, when David Sedaris came to San Francisco and was to promote his book, Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim, and was engaged by a clean, well-lighted place for books to read and do a book signing at the church I worked at, no one on the church staff thought he was funny. Most had never heard of David Sedaris nor read any of his books, and when I tried to share with them my favorite stories from Barrel Fever, they didn't think he was funny at all. As a result, I got the opportunity to tell everyone to turn off their cell phones and introduce the person who was introducing David Sedaris every night for a week and sell refreshments at the event and raise money for the church's after-school program. Lucky, lucky me. When it was all over, I got my copy of Barrel Fever signed, in which David wrote, "That's the way the cookie crumbles, David Sedaris." I have loved that little man ever since, and he's made me laugh, and I am certain no one in that church at that time ever thought of him ever again. We do not all think the same things are funny. Finding out what you think is funny and not letting anyone else define that for you is my second suggestion for how to keep your heart light in this new year. I took a master class with David Sedaris recently in which he said that he was glad he was a writer because When anything bad ever happens to him, the first thing he thinks is, "Thank God I'm a writer." And this is my third and most important suggestion for you in your spiritual growth for 2021. And that is to let it all be a story you tell with a twinkle in your eye. No matter how hard it gets, there is always some story to be told, some humor to be found. I will admit that some things are too hard to find humor in, yet even then we can find the story or nugget of hilarity to make us smile. Even in the midst of tragedy, our hearts can be lifted after a period of sadness by just reflecting on the absurdity of our losses. Do you remember the reactions in social gatherings after 9/11? I went to a Talking Heads concert at the State Theater in Portland, Maine that was rescheduled from 9/11, and the air was electric. People couldn't stop cheering and laughing, and David Byrne's usual deadpan was funnier than ever because our bodies needed to laugh. Similarly, I remember soon after 9/11 seeing The Aristocrats, which is a documentary film about a terribly crass joke that only comics knew. I won't tell you the joke because it's inappropriate for church, and I don't want to ruin the joke or the film if you haven't seen it. But there is a scene where Gilbert Gottfried tells the Aristocrats joke just after the 9/11 catastrophe to a public audience. The filmmakers give the impression that the public has never heard the joke before. Here's the thing, though. The occasion called for a beyond the pale, crass joke. Everyone needed to laugh, and so the comics joke for comics was the only thing that would do. We may be entering a time when that level of effort is needed to bring us out of a funk. Last night, Jenny and I found something that might, for at least some of you, fit the bill. On Netflix, we watched a film, Death to 2020. Perhaps too soon to laugh about the absurdities of last year, and yet it felt so good. Finding the absurdities in life is essential. Sometimes this might take effort, and it doesn't happen all the time with ease. But if you train your heart to look for the bright side or see the fun in life, it will get easier. If you're having trouble laughing, start small. Word games or any kind of game may also help you keep a smile on your face. This reminds me of that song in the musical Singing in the Rain, Make 'em Laugh, in which in the movie Donald O'Connor starts with a bunch of rhyming words and acts out the song with slapstick. There are all types of comedy, but rhyming and silly words are always a great place to start. For example, if you need a new linoleum floor and you can't laugh at the state of your current floor or the cost of the flooring and installation, just start thinking of words that rhyme with linoleum. Petroleum, amprolium, which is a poultry drug, tetrazolium, which I can't really tell you what it is because I don't have a degree in chemistry. All the words that rhyme with linoleum are fun to say and make me smile. Or you might choose to take joy in hearing the wind chimes, remembering as the angel tells Fred Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. And when you take walks by yourself, instead of feeling lonely, listen for wind chimes and smile and say to yourself, "Attaboy, Clarence." Push yourself to see some humor in life until you can put a smile on your face, because laughter really is the best medicine. Take something lighthearted that you find funny and carry it with you in your heart. Just yesterday in the New York Times, they published a story about a runaway llama in Bedford Hills, New York, not far from where I grew up. The subtitle read, "In a season of uncommon grief and worry, People far beyond the Westchester County estate from which Gizmo escaped were all too happy to fret about something else for a change. Instead of finding new things to fret about, let us find new things to laugh about. I don't know how much longer we will have to stay in quarantine, or how many more people will die during this COVID time, or from this dreaded disease. I just know that in these dispiriting times, we cannot let our hearts stay dispirited too long, or it will disturb our sleep and disrupt our health. When I was taking care of my great nieces who did our intergenerational message today, I encouraged Eloise, who was 5 at the time, to learn jokes in the 45-minute car ride to school. This was so when she got to school, she would have something funny to tell her friends that would make them laugh. This made the unending months of travel easier. In the same way, when I was doing my clinical pastoral education on the psych ward of the Maine Medical Center, and they started every clinical meeting with a joke, I knew I had to learn a joke to break the ice so people would get to know me and trust me. Here's my joke. So the Pope decided that he wanted to get all the Jews out of Rome. And so he went to his advisors and he said, I want to get all the Jews out of Rome. And they said, you can't kick the Jews out of Rome. Jesus was a Jew. And he says, well, I don't care. I want them out of Rome. So I'm going to ask the head rabbi to St. Peter's, and we're going to have a contest of symbolism. They said, all right. So he invites the head rabbi, and the head rabbi comes with a bunch of other rabbis, and the head rabbi and the Pope stand across from each other, and the Pope says, we're going to have a contest of symbolism. And if I win, all the Jews leave Rome. And if you win, you guys get to stay. And the rabbi says, okay. So the Pope says, and the rabbi says, and then the Pope says, and the rabbi says, and then the Pope brings out the host and the chalice, and the rabbi brings out an apple. And the Pope says, you won, you get to stay. And the Pope goes back to his advisors and they say, what happened? How did he win? We don't understand any of those symbols. And the Pope says, well, first I said, God is in 3 persons. And the rabbi said, God is one. And then I said, God is everywhere. And the rabbi reminded me that God is right here. And then I brought out the host and the chalice to remind the rabbi that Christ died for our sins. But then the rabbi brought out an apple to remind me of original sin. So they get to stay. Well, the rabbi went back to his people and they said, what happened? And he said, well, I'm not exactly sure. Well, just tell us what you did. And he says, well, first the Pope said, I'll give you 3 days. And I said, not one of us is leaving. And then he said, I want you all out of here. And I said, we're staying right here. Well, then what happened? He said, well, then he brought out his lunch and I brought out mine. Well, you can see how telling that joke probably made them laugh. They were expecting me to say something really untoward, and then it just was a silly joke. Making all the psychiatrists and the psych nurses laugh made them trust me a lot faster and made it easier for them to see me on the floor and ask me for help. These times are hard. Just like working on the psych unit was hard. Just like it was hard for my nieces to be away from their mom and their dad. It's essential that we all tap into the power of laughter, no matter what dispiriting things are around us, so that we can more easily return to living and loving and laughing when this COVID crisis is over. Let it be so. I invite you to join with me in singing "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple," number 16 in your gray hymnal, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." Let us fix our steps so we stagger not in the uneven motions of this world, but go steadily on our way, neither centering our journey by the weather we meet or turning aside from anything that might befall us. Amen. And please join me for Zoom Social Hour.